Year 2278. Humanity had reached the pinnacle of technology, strengthening its presence in the galaxy with interstellar travel and advanced war machines. Earth was at peace, maintaining relations with various planets. However, this peace abruptly ended. Massive Icarian ships descended from the sky, plunging the world into darkness. The sky filled with enormous fleets, and no human technology could withstand this invasion. The first wave of attacks crippled modern human civilization. All energy-based weapons, computer systems, drones, and armored vehicles were completely disabled by the electromagnetic pulse emitted by the Icarians. Air defense systems were rendered useless, and fighter jets remained grounded. Earth's armies were in panic. As soldiers fell one by one, people frantically sought escape routes. Surrender seemed to be the only option. Yet, amidst this chaos, a small resistance group tried to pull themselves together. Led by Marcus, a former soldier, the group included Harold, a former history teacher, Kara, a skilled weapons expert, and Eliza, a young, sharp-eyed sniper. These four decided to rediscover ancient methods of warfare. Gunpowder rifles, bows, spears, weapons forgotten in the modern world had become humanity's last hope. As Marcus looked at the small group of resistance fighters gathered around the campfire in the dead of night, he broke the silence. "We can't fight their technology, but this isn't the end," he said, taking a deep breath. "We will remember the wars of the old world. We'll return to the power of gunpowder and steel." Kara, cleaning her rifle, looked up. "Will these rifles pierce their armor?" Marcus approached the resistance fighters, who had gathered in the forest, exhausted and filled with despair. Uncertainty and fear were evident in their eyes. Kara had her head down, cleaning her weapon, while Eliza silently gazed at the sky, as if they no longer believed in this war. Standing in the center of the group, Marcus took a deep breath and raised his voice. "I know some of you think we have no chance of winning this war. All we have are gunpowder rifles, bows, and spears. They, on the other hand, are at the pinnacle of technology, with massive armor and energy weapons that seem unbeatable. But you're forgetting something." All eyes slowly turned to Marcus. Kara, unable to hide her concern, asked, "Marcus, how can we beat them? Our weapons can't even pierce their armor." Marcus locked eyes with Kara and continued resolutely, "They're not human. They don't understand the spirit of this planet, its soil, or its atmosphere. We were born here. We live here. Their armor may be strong, but every armor has a weak point. Didn't you notice in the last battle? Their knee joints, their necks. Those areas are vulnerable. With our rifles and bows, we'll target precisely those points." Eliza furrowed her brow in doubt. "But with armor that thick, how can we even hit them?" Marcus, speaking in a calm yet compelling voice, continued, "This isn't a battle of speed, it's a battle of wit. They're big, powerful, and slow. We're fast. We'll use hit-and-run tactics to surprise them. They rely on their armor, but that armor makes them slow. We know the forest, the trees, the paths better than they do. Here we have the advantage. We'll retreat into the forest and lure them into our traps." A stir ran through the resistance fighters. Marcus seized the moment to continue. "Our enemies are arrogant. They underestimate us. They find our rifles and bows primitive. But they don't know the power of gunpowder and metal. When we aim well, they'll see just how deadly these weapons can be." Kara raised her head and looked at Marcus. "But are we really going to defeat that massive army with traps? Do we have enough explosives?" Marcus smiled. "It's not always brute force that wins, but strategy. When we lure them into a region filled with explosives, thinking we're retreating, they'll suffer a massive blow. After that, we'll pick off the remaining soldiers, one by one, in the chaos. You'll see, once their ranks are broken, they're not as invincible as they seem." Eliza nodded, a glimmer of hope returning to her eyes. "So, we'll turn their weaknesses to our advantage?" Marcus nodded firmly. "Exactly. Their greatest weakness is their arrogance. They look down on us. But we are children of this planet. With our gunpowder rifles and bows, we will win. As long as we fight together, using our intelligence and determination, we will win this war. Because we belong to this world, they don't." Marcus's words sparked a fire in the group. Everyone gripped their weapons again, and fear gave way to determination. Marcus had reminded them that victory wasn't just about technology. It was about strategy, resilience, and willpower. The Resistance's first major operation began with an ambush on an Icarian patrol. Marcus and his team hid deep in the forest, watching and waiting for the patrol to approach. The metallic footsteps of the Icarian soldiers echoed through the forest. 3 alien soldiers advanced, feeling secure in their armor and advanced weapons, not even considering humans a threat. Marcus raised his hand, giving the silent signal to attack. Arrows suddenly whizzed through the air. The Icarian soldiers paused, bewildered, trying to make sense of the situation. At that moment, Kara's rifle fired, and bullets struck the weak points in the alien's armor. One Icarian soldier collapsed to the ground. Eliza, with her bow, aimed at another soldier. Her arrow flew swiftly, piercing the alien's helmet. The alien staggered for a few steps before falling. The last soldier, panicked, tried to flee, but Marcus swiftly moved in with his spear, taking him down. Harold looked at the fallen Icarian soldier and took a deep breath. "They think this war is simple for them, but they're wrong." Marcus nodded. "This is just the beginning. They rely on their technology, but we rely on human intelligence and determination. This war will be won our way." That night, the resistance camp was filled with the pride of victory. But Marcus knew that these small victories were just the first steps in a much larger war. The Icarians wouldn't give up easily. Saving the planet would require more than just small victories. It would take strategy and courage. Turning to the group, Marcus said, "Tomorrow we have a new target. This time we'll take down a larger patrol." Kara slung her rifle over her shoulder and leaned toward Marcus. "What's your plan, Marcus?" "We'll beat them at their own game," Marcus replied, his eyes filled with determination. "Their arrogance is our greatest advantage." Marcus and his team were now on a path of no return. The next morning, the air in the resistance camp was thick with tension. Marcus stood before his team, studying the strategic map as he explained their new mission. "Today, our target is a larger patrol unit. We'll strike near their main headquarters. We have to be smarter against their technological superiority." Eliza glanced at the map with concern. "We'll be facing more soldiers. They'll be better armored and more numerous. Will the old rifles and bows be enough this time?" Marcus leaned toward her, locking eyes with determination. "They will be. We know our enemies, but they underestimate us. That is our greatest advantage." Once the preparations were complete, the resistance fighters moved swiftly into the depths of the forest. Their goal was to set an ambush along one of the main patrol routes used by the Icarians, and deal them a heavy blow to throw them into confusion. Marcus, focused on the details, gave his final instructions to the group. "We need to execute this perfectly. Focus on the weak points, and don't fire until they're in the trap. Every bullet, every arrow needs to have a target." As the sun rose high, the resistance fighters waited silently in the thick of the forest. Hidden among the trees, Marcus and his team listened to the approaching metallic footsteps of the patrol. This time, there were about 10 Icarian soldiers. Clad in their enormous machines and armor, each one seemed like a walking death machine. Marcus silently signaled Kara. She raised her old rifle, peering through the scope at the patrol. "Aim for the weak spot," she whispered. As the Icarian soldiers neared the trap, Marcus held his hand up, waiting. Once a few of them passed and were in perfect alignment with their position, Marcus quickly lowered his hand, signaling the attack. In an instant, Eliza released an arrow, which flew through the air and struck the helmet of the lead Icarian soldier, sending him to the ground. Kara's rifle fired next, and a bullet shot through the joint of another soldier's armor, causing him to stumble and fall. The remaining Icarians, caught off guard, looked around in confusion while the resistance fighters swiftly repositioned. Marcus speared one soldier, and Harold took aim with his rifle, taking down another. Suddenly, a massive Icarian armored vehicle roared to life. Positioned at the center of the patrol, this heavy vehicle activated its energy weapons, emitting bright beams of light. But Marcus had been waiting for this moment. "Now!" he shouted. The resistance fighters triggered the explosives they had set earlier. A huge explosion rocked the ground beneath the vehicle, lifting it off the ground before it toppled over onto its side. As the Icarian soldiers scrambled in panic, Eliza's arrows and Kara's bullets took them down one by one. The explosion and resulting debris threw the enemy into chaos. But amid the confusion, one Icarian soldier advanced instead of retreating. This one was different, larger, stronger, and with thicker armor. Marcus noticed him and quickly repositioned. He readied his spear and charged at the soldier, but this alien was faster than Marcus had anticipated. The soldier activated an energy shield, blocking Marcus's attack. For a moment, Marcus's life flashed before his eyes. But just then, he saw Eliza fire another arrow. The arrow found a small gap in the Icarian soldier's shield, piercing through his armor. The alien staggered before collapsing to the ground. Marcus exhaled deeply. "Nice shot, Eliza," he said with a slight smile. A brief silence fell over the battlefield. All that remained were the fallen alien soldiers and the wreckage of the armored vehicle. Marcus looked at his team and nodded. "That's how it's done," he said, his voice filled with pride. Kara slung her rifle over her shoulder and approached Marcus. "Another victory for us." Marcus surveyed the wreckage and the fallen soldiers. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. Bigger attacks are coming." Eliza, staring into the distance, nodded slightly. "They're underestimating us. We'll use that mistake against them as long as we can." Later that day, the resistance fighters retreated back into the forest. This victory had strengthened their hope. Now, they needed to carefully plan their next move. Marcus approached the resistance fighters, gathered in the depths of the forest, weary and full of despair. Uncertainty and fear filled their eyes. Kara sat with her head down, cleaning her weapon, while Eliza silently gazed up at the sky. It seemed like they had lost faith in the final battle. Marcus took a deep breath and stood in the center of the group. Raising his voice, he began to speak. "I know some of you think we don't stand a chance of winning this war. We only have gunpowder rifles, bows, and spears. They, on the other hand, are at the peak of technology, with massive armor and energy weapons that make them seem invincible. But there's something you're forgetting." Slowly, everyone's eyes turned toward Marcus. Kara, unable to hide the worry on her face, asked, "Marcus, how can we defeat them? Our weapons can't even pierce their armor." Locking eyes with Kara, Marcus continued with determination. "They're not human. They don't understand the soul of this planet, its land, its atmosphere. But we do. We were born here, We live here. Their armor may be strong, but every armor has a weak spot. Didn't you notice in the last battle? Their knee joints, their neck areas. Those are vulnerable. With our gunpowder rifles and arrows, we will strike precisely at these weak points. Eliza frowned in doubt. But how can we hit them when their armor is so thick? Marcus, speaking calmly but powerfully, replied, "This isn't a battle of speed. It's a battle of intelligence. They're big, strong, and slow. We are fast. Using hit-and-run tactics, we can catch them off guard. They rely on their armor, but that armor is heavy and slows them down. We know the forest, the trees, the paths better than they ever will. We'll retreat into the forest and lead them straight into our traps." A stir began among the resistance fighters. Seizing the moment, Marcus pressed on. "Our enemies are arrogant. They underestimate us. They find our rifles and bows primitive. But they don't understand the power of gunpowder and metal. When we aim well, they'll see just how deadly these weapons can be." Kara lifted her head and looked at Marcus. "But can we destroy their massive army with just traps? Do we have enough explosives?" Marcus smiled. "Victory doesn't always go to the strongest. It goes to the smartest. When we lure them into a trap, making it look like we're retreating, they'll walk right into an area filled with explosives. After that, we'll pick off the remaining soldiers in the chaos, one by one. You'll see, once their ranks are broken, how vulnerable they become." Eliza nodded, a spark of hope reigniting in her eyes. "So, we'll turn their weaknesses against them?" Marcus nodded firmly. "Exactly. Their greatest weakness is their arrogance. They see us as small. But we are the children of this land. With our gunpowder rifles and bows, we will achieve victory. We just need to fight together, using our brains and our willpower. We will win this war, because we belong here. They don't." Marcus' words ignited a flame within the group. Everyone gripped their weapons once again. Fear was replaced with determination because Marcus had reminded them that victory was not just about technology, but also about strategy, perseverance, and courage. Marcus' bravery spread through the entire army, reigniting the fading spirit of resistance. As the sun rose, the human forces silently took their positions. Marcus, as the leader of the resistance, was at the front. The enemy Icarians, with their massive armor and energy weapons, were advancing. Though technologically superior, they were unaware of how well prepared the human defenses were. From within the forest, Marcus gave his final instructions to his team. "Everyone be ready. When the enemy gets close, we'll trigger the explosives. Afterward, we'll take down the exposed soldiers with our arrows and rifles. This is our last chance. Stay focused and never give up." The Icarian army marched forward, unaware that they were walking into an area filled with explosives. At the moment they were most concentrated, Marcus raised his hand and gave the signal. A massive explosion echoed from the depths of the forest. The explosives detonated with a thunderous roar, sending flames and debris raining down on the Icarian soldiers. Confident in their armor, the Icarians were thrown off balance by the force of the explosion. Some suffered heavy damage, and the weaknesses in their armor's joints were exposed. This was the moment Marcus and the resistance fighters had been waiting for. Following the explosion, Marcus shouted, "Attack!" The resistance fighters emerged swiftly from the forest, targeting the weak points they had identified with their rifles and arrows. The Icarians' mobility was limited by their heavy armor, and the human forces, using hit-and-run tactics, had them under intense pressure. Eliza struck an Icarian soldier in the neck, causing the massive creature to collapse under its heavy armor. Kara aimed an arrow at another's knee joint, and the arrow pierced the exposed area, bringing the creature to the ground. Marcus' strategy had worked. The Icarians were stunned and helpless. Their technological superiority was rendered meaningless against the swift and agile human forces. The resistance fighters, moving quickly through the chaos of the explosions, took down each Icarian soldier one by one. When Marcus came face to face with one of the largest and strongest Icarian officers, he focused all his attention. The Icarian officer aimed his energy weapon at Marcus, but Marcus dodged with a quick movement and spotted a weak point. He raised his rifle, aimed carefully, and without hesitation pulled the trigger. The bullet pierced the officer's armor at the neck, and the massive creature collapsed with its arms falling to the sides. The Icarians, overwhelmed by the chaos, began to retreat. Within a short time, they were forced to abandon the forest. Humanity had triumphed with primitive weapons and clever strategies. At the end of the battle, Marcus stood in the center of the forest, weary but filled with the pride of victory. As he watched the resistance fighters gather behind him, he stood silently for a moment, taking a deep breath. Eliza slowly approached him and looked into his eyes. "We did it," she said. "We took back the world." Marcus nodded. "Yes," he replied with determination. "But this is just the beginning. Now we will rebuild our freedom." They trusted their technology, but we trusted our will. And it's that will that saved us. Kara, dropping her rifle to the ground, came up next to Marcus. "We won this battle, but what will we do if they come back?" Marcus smiled as he gazed into the distance. "If they come, we'll be ready. But this time, we'll be even more prepared. Because now we know what matters: unity, courage, and intelligence." Despite the devastation of the war, hope filled the hearts of the people once again. This victory was not just a military one. It was a triumph of the human spirit and resistance. The world was saved, and the Icarians were forced to retreat. Marcus and his team had reclaimed their freedom. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.